Welcome everybody. My name is David Griscom and you are listening to Left Reckoning. Happy to be here with all of y'all. We've had a pretty wild past few hours here. As everybody knows, right here in Austin, Texas, there's been an extremely brutal crackdown on people standing up and saying no to genocide, no to the mass slaughter of Palestinians. Something that a threat, a kind of position, a human position that truly is, I think, so simple and so recognizable in its righteousness and its truthfulness that to oppose it like the state does, both the leadership of the state of Texas to the president of this United States, it does really expose the wickedness of the systems of government that we have in this country, the people who are in power. Because to brutalize students, activists, folks who are saying not in my name, saying no to, again, the slaughter of children and women and civilians, the basic metric of humanity and human decency, that statement, that position being so threatening to the Joe Bidens, to the Donald Trumps, and to the Greg Abbotts of this world really does expose the fundamental inhumanity in this system. And that's why they just sort of have to come at it in the way that they are, and what we saw yesterday at UT, is brutal. But let's not forget that from New York to Los Angeles, we are seeing similar kinds of threats from police, similar kinds of crackdowns on everyday folks, because this really does get at the fundamental heart of the inhumanity that is baked in to the American system. Now, just a quick housekeeping up front. These are a little bit more casual streams than our main shows on Tuesdays at 6 Central. I have a lot of stuff I want to say today. We got some video and things like that. But feel free to jump into the chat with any questions or comments or things you might want to say. We do really appreciate super chats. It helps this program keep going. But I will try to get as many as I can up here as possible. So get in the chat. Please do at Left Reckoning or at David Griscom so that I can see it. And we'll get those up on screen. Well, let's begin here. Because there's a lot of kind of things that I think are worth sort of uncovering about the protest yesterday. And we're going to go kind of in depth and look at a few of the major incidents, some of the fundamental hypocrisies that we're seeing right now when it comes to the reaction from the police and the reaction from the government. But before we get into all of that, I did just want to play this and highlight something on a more positive note. Which is this video from Los Angeles, this interview with a father of a student at USC, who I think just really put the simplicity, the humanity, and the importance of this fight in clear words here. So let's play this to sort of set the stage a little bit, and then we'll go a little bit in depth into the University of Texas brutal crackdown that we saw from DPS yesterday.
Yeah, I'm here with Lázaro Abuelo. You are a father of a student at USC who's here. Tell me why you're on campus. You also said you're a Los Angeles resident.
I am here to support my daughter. She's studying here, and they're protesting against the genocide. And that's why I am against the genocide. My family is against the genocide. We think that no kid deserves to be killed.
Well, why did you come down to campus?
Yeah, because my daughter started organizing too. Says, hey, we have to support Palestine. And that's why I am here. Not only to support Palestine, we want the genocide to stop.
Do you know where your daughter is right now?
Right now, gotta be somewhere because the police start chasing all the students. As you see, they are threatening. If we don't leave the campus, we are gonna be arrested. But the students are so brave. Look at them. They don't want to leave the campus.
Does that concern you, though, as a father, that your daughter is somewhere?
Even though it concern me, but my daughter did the right decision. If she rather to be arrested fighting for Palestine, I will be the happiest daddy. I will be the happiest daddy if she's doing the right thing. And I know she's doing the right thing. If the police arrest me now, I am willing to go with the students. I have no problem, because what I am doing is the right thing, fighting against a genocide. I have kids, not only the teenagers, I have a 7 years old, and I imagine being a father in Palestine, to see my kid be assassinated by Israel. That's not good. We are humanity. This is not a matter of religion, political, no. We are humans. We cannot support any genocide.
Well, we will let you go and find your daughter, and I appreciate you talking to us.
Free Palestine, always.
Thank you for talking to us.
Peace with Palestine, always.
Quite the story there. A father coming down to campus, his daughter, a USC student, partaking in the protest, which went on all day here on campus.
I think something that is just tremendously beautiful there. I think very well spoken, on point. And I think, again, really highlights the fundamental humanity of this position and the moral imperative to stand up and fight and say no. And we're going to get into what happened at the University of Texas right now, a little bit more in depth. But the fact of the matter is that they can come and they can, beat people, they can arrest people, but more people are going to continue to show up. And that's just been a fundamental reality from the get-go. There has been hope from the Biden administration, certainly from certain members of the Israeli government, absolutely from the Republican Party, that the American people would just sort of accept the mass slaughter of Palestinians by Israel. They just sort of accepted it would move out of the news cycle. Well, what we have seen has been, not only has it not fallen out of the news cycle, people are ever more and more committed every day to standing up not just against Israel's mass slaughter, but the American involvement in propping up a racist state, a genocidal state that is Israel. So let's get into what happened here in Austin, Texas yesterday. I did just want to put this up here because we appreciate it very much, from our good friend Alerta, who said, "I've asked a lot of free questions. Here are my dues. Love y'all, free Palestine." We really appreciate the super chat there, and I always appreciate hearing from you, friend. And as always, people feel free to try to to participate in this stream. These are a little bit more casual and conversational, so jump in the chat with any kind of questions or things that you would like to have shared here. But where to start? We have some video from the protest yesterday, some of the major incidents. But I really just want to set the stage because I think for people who may have not been following this really closely or have sort of seen like how it escalated and what ended up happening, might miss a couple of very fundamental facts here. What was planned at the University of Texas yesterday was a protest and an action, like actions that have that happen all across this country for years and years and years, and certainly at an institution like the University of Texas at Austin. Myself, I've participated in many protests in my life, many protests here in Austin, many protests in DC and in other places. Right? What happened yesterday was one of the most extreme overreactions I have seen. Maybe the only thing that comes close to it was January 20th in Washington, D.C., when police used extreme brutal force to attack protesters there as well, who were protesting Donald Trump's presidency. Now, before the protest even started, there were reports of a massive police presence, an absolutely massive police presence, again, for an action, that I'm going to put up right here. This is from the flyer that was announcing the action yesterday. Schedule Wednesday, April 24th. Walk out of class at 11:40. Walkouts happen at universities all across the country all the time. I'm not trying to discredit the tactic or anything like that, but again, pretty standard issue order for a protest here. At noon, there was going to be a guest speaker. Then there was going to be a study break as people were getting ready for exams. Then there was going to be a teach-in, another study break, student movement teach-in, a study break at 5, food break, they were going to have some pizza, and at 7 p.m. there was going to be an art workshop. That was met by a mass mobilization of Texas DPS officers, along with members of the University of Texas Police, and with Austin Police Department. Now, for people outside of Texas, you might not know all of the police officers, all of the law enforcement organizations here. We have a shitload. And most importantly, I think people need to recognize that the two main players, there's three main players: Austin Police Department, University of Texas Police, and DPS. One of these is the one that you're going to see with heavily armored. We'll show some pictures in a second of just how much ammunition some of these officers were carrying. The DPS is part of law enforcement that is most directly under the control of Governor Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott had a direct role in the escalation and the violence that we saw yesterday. He wanted to make a show of it. He wanted for this protest to get cracked down upon, and he got his wish. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about Greg Abbott and all this in a second, but for people who've been watching this program and been following our coverage of Texas, it is absolutely important that you recognize the fact that the way that Governor Greg Abbott has been using the DPS in the state of Texas has been right up against the letter of the law. He has used them, right as we saw right now, basically as a personal security force to enact brutality on everyday Texans, as we saw at the University of Texas yesterday. He has used them to for much political effect. Like recently, when the city of Austin, through a lot of arm ringing, brought in the Department of Public Safety, DPS, to come and do everyday policing operations. Why? Well, because APD, not perfect, but at least has some semblance of responsibility to everyday Austinites, right? There's at least some potential of oversight. DPS, I mean, it's so far away in terms of its oversight and the authority over it from your everyday citizen of Austin, that they can basically do what they want. They are much more loyal and associated with, again, the governor of the state of Texas. So he sent them around to start patrolling the streets of Austin as a way to punish the city for the protests for Black Lives, and because of a whole host of other grievances that people like Greg Abbott have with the city of Austin. And most notably for people outside of Texas, DPS has been one of the major players in Operation Lone Star, where we are seeing some of the most inhumane brutality at the border. It's really important to not, to recognize that all of these factors that we're going to talk about right now are all very, very much connected in the hands of Greg Abbott, who has centralized power in the state of Texas, a state that constitutionally has a weak governor system because the framers of the Texas Constitution did not want one man, one individual to have centralized power over the entirety of Texas. Greg Abbott, because he completely controls the Republican Party, and the Democratic Party has been absolutely pathetic for my entire lifetime in this state, effectively as a one-party state where he is now taking more and more power than is even constitutionally given to him. And DPS is one of the most egregious, invisible versions of that, as he is basically using what is supposed to, again, be a kind of public state law enforcement organization, and using it as a private and personal security force. So we see this mass mobilization of DPS at the University of Texas at Austin yesterday before anything even starts. Usually what will happen with these is that the police will sort of maybe look out for, okay, these, this group here, they're dressed in a certain way. They look like they could be maybe goaded into throwing a water bottle at us or, breaking some kind of rule. So we're going to go over them and stand near them and be a little menacing until one of them makes the mistake of engaging with us. And then boom, we have clearance. We have the right to come and brutally, violently put down that protest. That's pretty typical policing tactics that you will see at protests all across the country. Now, what happened here and was really notable is that no significant action like that happened. No, the police immediately started cracking down on people. And the reason for it was that the University of Texas declared that all these people were illegally trespassing. And we're going to play a video. Why don't we play it right now to show why that is absolute bullshit. The University of Texas at Austin, like many universities across the country, but particularly universities right here in the state of Texas, have been engaged in this long and tiresome debate about freedom of speech at college campuses. Now, most of the time when they're talking about freedom of speech at college campuses, they're talking about, hey, should a right-wing YouTuber be able to set up a booth on campus to harass college students as they're going into class? Now, look, I'm not going to wade into that one right now. But most of the free speech debates that we've been hearing from Republicans and from the people who in positions of power here have been, hey, can we bring in people to sort of harass students? And the answer has been a resounding yes, both from the University of Texas, but also from the Texas legislature and people like Greg Abbott. In fact, in 2019, here's Greg Abbott addressing the problem of freedom of speech at colleges. And this is what he promised to do about it here.
Some colleges are banning free speech on college campuses. Well, no more, because I'm about to sign a law that protects free speech on college campuses in Texas.
Yeah, this is big magic
Shouldn't have
marker.
to do it. First Amendment guarantees it. Now it's law in Texas.
Nice. Well, there we go. The Constitution promises it. The First Amendment guarantees it, and it's law in Texas. I mean, we take our constitutional rights very seriously here. I do. It seems like they're the ones who have a problem with it, because again, what we saw yesterday was a group of DPS under the order of the governor of the state of Texas stomping on the very principle of freedom of speech in the state of Texas. But wait, I thought there was a problem about freedom of speech on college campuses. And, the big tough governor and all these smart guys in the legislature have gotten together to make sure that freedom of speech will be guaranteed. Very interesting that, that's what we've been hearing for the past few years. And then yesterday, we see this crackdown. Now, for their part in the University of Texas at Austin, and we're going to talk about the president of the university system in just a minute. They've sort of heard these demands from the Republican Party about freedom of speech on campus. And here's a video that they put out just a couple months back talking about the rights of people to be able to do free speech on the University of Texas at Austin's property, including people who are not students at the University of Texas at Austin. This is an official video from the University of Texas.
Why can members of the public come to campus at any time and engage in demonstrations and speeches?
So state law in Texas actually allows members of the public, just like our university community, to come onto campus and use our common outdoor areas for speech activity. I think that surprises a lot of students. They show up here and they think, who is this random stranger setting up a table talking about a thing I find upsetting? But that's protected by state law, and members of the public, just like university community, can use our common outdoor areas. Now, it isn't a free-for-all. So when you say why can they come at any time? There's some nuance there. It's subject to our university rules that are permitted under the law. So we can put in place time, place, and manner restrictions that are really all about making sure those are content neutral. So we can't have rules that say, well, you can't come to campus and talk about this or that subject or express this or that view, but we can have rules about where you can set up tables, for example, or that during the hours of 8 to 5, we don't have amplified sound in areas outside of designated amplified sound areas. People can't congregate in front of openings to buildings.
So here we got it. I played the full thing there because this is the argument that the University of Texas is making, is that, hey, we don't make exceptions. We just said, hey, once this protest started, free speech is over in this area. Despite time and time again, loud, disruptive movements happening on the University of Texas campus, what happened yesterday was absolutely something that was being shut down because of what people were demanding. Because what we've gotten from the governor, what we've gotten from Republican politicians is this claim that a university march, that a university demonstration is a threat to the safety of Jewish students. And as we have talked about time and time again, this cynical, nasty, and extremely dangerous conflation with criticism of Israel's mass slaughter campaign of Gazans, of Palestinians, with anti-Semitism is one, factually baseless. Just anyone with a fucking brain or pulse understands this. But two, is extremely dangerous because what does it do? It conflates Jewish people, Judaism, with the brutality of the apartheid state of Israel, which is absolutely ludicrous and incorrect to do. Extremely dangerous games that we see from the right and from a university system now that has shown itself to be very happy to be the poster child. The poster child. This is something that, 20 years from now, we'll look back at these moments of the genocide in Gaza, the complicity of the Democratic Party, the complicity of the Republican Party, and you will also remember the University of Texas at Austin as being a site where the campaign against free speech kicked off in earnest. That is going to be the legacy of the people who made the decisions that were made yesterday. But yes, so the University of Texas at Austin started blaring out messages to people saying that free speech is suspended on campus. So therefore, we're going to brutalize a bunch of protesters and journalists. Now, let's look here at some of these. And again, it's absolutely ludicrous to sit here and, we can get into all of these different laws that have been getting passed by the Texas legislature on roadways and things like that. The student protest was like very, very many other protests that happened at the University of Texas at Austin this year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, in terms of the location where it was. It got moved time and time again as the police cracked down on different areas. And it was indiscriminate. So let's get here, and I want to play this video really fast of a journalist who was arrested by the DPS because they were coming at everybody. They were coming at students and they were coming at journalists. Very clearly, I'm going to play this video here, but very clearly, this journalist has identified themselves as a journalist and is also wearing press credentials.
Who are you with?
I'm with Fox 7.
Fox 7?
Yeah,
what's your name?
Carlos.
Carlos, what do you think of this?
I think it's, they were pushing me and they say that I hit an officer. I didn't hit an officer. They were pushing. You know what I mean? They were pushing me.
I'm a legal observer. What's your name and date of birth? We're going to send attorneys to you.
Has this ever happened?
No, it's never happened to me. You know what I mean? I was just covering things. And
did you tell them you were the press?
Yeah, I told them that I was the press. This one says I was hitting an officer. I was not hitting them.
And again, this is a journalist with a local news channel, just easily verifiable. You can see it. All right, you've been to a protest before. You can tell who he's holding. We're gonna play a video in a second. He's holding a big ass video camera here, in the video. And to sit here and arrest this guy as if he has now decided that he's going to turn his video camera, right, that he's recording the news with, because remember, the police here are pushing and attacking and moving into the protesters. So this journalist is trying to get the shot. They're holding the big ass camera, right, as they're getting pushed and moved around. To sit here for a second as a police officer and seriously say that a journalist was trying to assault you with a video camera is one of the most ludicrous things, that you can imagine. Now, it would be ludicrous enough if we didn't have video of it, but we have video of exactly what happened. Look at not only the fact that it's very clear that he was not intentionally trying to barge into the police officer. Look at the way that these police officers react and arrest this guy. And, just warning, this is going to show a pretty brutal police arrest of this journalist. But here he is at the bottom of the screen. He's following as the police are going after the protesters. Body slammed.
Holy shit! Holy shit! Move back! Move back! Move back! Move back! Move back! Move back! Move back!
So that's the way that police were handling the protesters there. And again, let's make this very, very clear. The police started being aggressive, attacking, pushing, and harassing student protesters and other people who aren't students who were participating in the march immediately. It did not escalate in the sense of, there was a kind of standoff and, things got a little heated. It was immediate. Once the crowd gathered, the police reacted to it. Again, students and the public, who, as we just played in a little while ago, have the right to protest, both by Texas state law, by University of Texas policy, and by the United States Constitution. What happened here is that the DPS, the Texas DPS, got orders from Greg Abbott to attend this protest. And very clearly, we don't have the cables, we don't have all that kind of stuff, right? We have to fill in the blanks a little bit. But very clearly felt that it was within their purview, right? Regardless of what was said, whatever the official orders were, felt that it was within their purview to assault a journalist, to break up and attack student protesters without provocation. That's what they felt their orders were. I don't know. Who knows what Greg Abbott told them? It's very clear how they understood that order, as we saw just then. Now, the thing is that this was a very high stakes and a very tense moment because the officers here were heavily armed. Look at this. This is from our good friend Mike Prisoner, who is showing us. So we have this photo of the state troopers here, right? And there were a lot of photographs that are out there, a lot of videos out there of the sheer police presence, the weapons that they have. But I want to note something that I think is really important from our good friend Mike Prisoner here, who zoomed in on the jacket, the vest on one of the state troopers, and noted this. The state troopers each appear to be carrying 100 plus rounds of AR-15 ammunition at the University of Texas at Austin protest. That is an absolutely frightening thing. It is absolutely, it's bad enough that the police are showing up in riot gear, are attacking protesters, are doing what they're doing. But the fact that these guys are showing up, not just armed, right? Hell, we know it. We know how the police are. Not just armed, but armed as if they're going to be going into a prolonged firefight. I mean, seriously, think about that. You are armed like that because students and the public, everyday Texans, are getting together and saying, Israel, stop murdering children. Israel, stop bombing universities. Israel, stop preventing food from entering into Gaza. The reaction, the tactical decision of the DPS there is to show up with enough ammunition to mow down everybody. What kind of message does that say here? I mean, it is truly, truly an attempt to shut down dissent in the state of Texas. And before, we're going to focus on Greg Abbott because he is the head honcho here in Texas. But let's not fucking forget for a second what we were seeing in New York, what we were seeing in LA. And remember, we have a presidential election coming up. And I think it's important to note that all the divisions that we're seeing in this country, there's one thing that unites these folks, and that is a hatred of freedom of speech and of democracy of everyday people, and a hatred of Americans getting together and saying no genocide in Gaza. Donald Trump, what is going on the college level in the colleges at Columbia and others is a disgrace. Then we have Joe Biden, who condemned the blatant anti-Semitism of the Columbia pro-Palestine protests. So he agrees that, hey, these protests are out of control and they're anti-Semitic. That people saying, hey, stop bombing children. Stop destroying bakeries. Stop starving millions of people. Oh, yeah, that's bad. Someone should be condemned. It's nice. They can all come together. Greg Abbott, of course, said arrests are being made now, sharing a video of the police coming at a very violent video, by the way, of police coming at the students, saying arrests being made right now and will continue until the crowd disperses. These protesters belong in jail. Anti-Semitism will not be tolerated in Texas, period. So look, a lot of unity between Joe Biden, Greg Abbott, and Donald Trump. You can't get them to agree on too much other than, I don't know, doing horrors at the United States border and supporting an apartheid regime as it tries to exterminate an entire group of people. There's some more points we can make about the University of Texas system, and we will in a second. And then I want to open up to a few questions before we go. But I did just want to start here because, there are plenty of videos and, out of respect for the folks engaged in them, didn't want to show people getting tackled or beat or anything like that. But I think that one thing that's really important to remember in these moments is that these are very edifying and clear moments that create a lot of clarity, right? Because what is it that the state has to beat down upon? What is it? Why is it that they have to attack everyday folks for doing this? It's because this system is so attached to the monstrosity and the terror that Israel is doing to the people of Palestine that they have to bring that shit home. It's too much of a threat. As you see, the unity, Biden is threatened by it, and so is Greg Abbott, and so is Donald Trump. They are threatened by this, so they must see it get defeated. And the thing is that it is bad what they are doing. It is dangerous what they are doing. But people will not accept this shit anymore. And I think it's very inspiring and important for us to remember that. Because despite everything that we saw yesterday, this is just early this morning. Or not early this morning, but this is this afternoon, late morning, early afternoon. This is how many people have gotten together to participate in another action. So despite all the threats, despite all of the attacks, people are undeterred. And we should salute them and stand with them from Austin to New York to Georgia to USC to Gaza, and know that people will not be silent. And I think that's something that as things get more and more difficult, it can be really easy to lose hope. And that is the intention of these attacks. That is the intention of the lying. That is the intention of the propaganda. And you can't ever let those motherfuckers win. There's some follow-up things that I have here, but I want to make sure that y'all are able to participate in this conversation. And I know we got a couple of super chats, so feel free to jump in with anything that you have on here, and I'll try to read it and take some questions. Our good friend Byron Man says, let's not play into the far-right genociders' plan to tie Jews to Israel, free Palestine, protect our Jewish brethren. Absolutely. And I think that's a very easy and important thing to say. And it's really dangerous the way that the U.S. is doing this, the way Biden is doing this, the way Abbott is doing this, the way the German government is doing this. It is, about nothing more than protecting the powerful from the consequences of their actions and their ideologies. Byron Man says, and appreciate the chat as well, says, what do you think about the Saudi-Israel deal Biden is working on with the help of Lindsey Graham? Imagine thinking that Americans want to die for the House of Saud. God help us. I mean, look, it is, I think, one of the most notable things as we have seen this attempt between Israel and Saudi Arabia to kind of, reduce tensions between those two brutal systems. These are the friends that the current government of Israel has, right? Genocide deniers and people like Joe Biden, and the literal barbaric monarchy of Saudi Arabia. That is like the axis there, right? It's a really brutal one. And I think, you can judge people a lot by the company that they keep. And in Israel's case, it's becoming very clear the kinds of states that are surrounding themselves around them. So I want to talk a little bit about the president of the University of Texas, Jay Hartzell, who has been the president for a few years now. And I'm not going to sit here and get involved in internal politics of the University of Texas system. But I'm going to tell some people some things right now. If you've been paying attention to what's happening politically in the state of Texas, if you've been watching this program, following our coverage of it, there's no doubt about it that the Republican Party of Texas is at war with the entire concept of higher education, right? They want to dictate how we teach history. They want to dictate what kind of conversations can be had. You know, they banned a book. They literally, you had high-ranking officials, Dan Patrick, getting involved about whether or not the University of Texas, if it wasn't the University of Texas, it was the Bullock Museum, could host a conversation with two scholars who wrote a book criticizing the mythologies around the Alamo. Look, it's not something that I get too worked up about one way or the other, but the fact that we can't treat Texas history like legitimate history and instead have to treat it with kids' gloves to placate the fucking Republican Party of Texas, it's an absolute joke. And, you know, that's some kind of trivial example, right? I mean, not trivial to the academics there engaged in that. The Republican Party of Texas wants to control the curriculum, the academic investigation of the university systems of Texas. It's dangerous for Texas, both in the immediate sense of like how we are educating our next generation, and whether or not they will be able to access true information, whether or not they will be able to experience academic freedom, a cornerstone of democracy. It's also extremely dangerous because these guys want all these companies to come here and the jobs of the future. And if you're waging war in the university system, if you're making it hard to be a professor or a teacher or an educator or faculty at these universities, do you think you're going to be able to recruit the best and the brightest? Or do you think they're going to go to California and teach those kids? So then who comes and is working at the chip manufacturing plants? Well, you know, the managers probably going to be from out of state if these guys get their way. The assault on academic freedom on the University of Texas system, on Texas public universities in general, is something that has been apparent almost out of a textbook of what authoritarian governments do to the universities, which are always going to be the target of tyrants and authoritarians. It is the duty of people in leadership at these universities to stand up for the basic principles of the university system. It's so crazy to sit here and have this kind of conversation because it's the kind of thing that, you know, you can get too like teary-eyed about because, you know, a lot of the universities in this country have become more and more cynical, right? But when you see the egregious way that the state government of Texas has been trying to engage and involve itself on academic decisions at the University of Texas, it is one of the most offensive and blatant things ever. And what have we seen from the leadership of the University of Texas over the past 4 years as these attacks have become more and more blatant? Complete compliance. Not just compliance, but over-compliance, as we saw just a couple weeks back when the University of Texas fired around 60 staff members. Even though they were already in compliance with all of these crazy laws that are being passed by the legislature trying to demand that universities organize and hire in a certain way, they overcomplied. The University of Texas overcomplied so that they could placate Greg Abbott. And then in a moment like this, a moment that is fucking black and white, you are the president of a university. Do you want to be the kind of president of the university who stands with the university community, that stands with your faculty, that stands with your students? Or do you want to be the one who gets a call from the governor and says, bring those boys on in, let's crack some skulls? Because that's what we saw yesterday. That's what we saw yesterday from the University of Texas president. Somebody who was shown time and time again, they will bend over and say, yes, sir, and they will jump as high as they are ordered to placate the Republican Party of Texas. Now, can't get into somebody's head. Does he believe what they believe and wants to do what they want to do? Or does he think, oh, I have to do this because, the whole system could get in trouble? The University of Texas system has a shitload of money. And yes, it gets state money, but you know what? I can't think of a public university system in the country that is actually more prepared to say to the Republicans, hey, we're not going to play your game, right? We're going to protect our professors. We're going to protect academic integrity at our university. But no, overcompliance with every demand they get from the Republicans, as if it's going to stop. That's the funniest idea. It's like, oh, well, then maybe they're just doing it because then they'll settle down. Yeah, totally. You roll over and those guys are going to be like, oh, well, I guess we got enough out of here. I guess we got enough out of this. Faculty showed up today. University employees, the workers. And they showed up and they said no to the genocide in Gaza. And they said no to Jay Hartzell. There's a faculty petition now to hold a no confidence vote in the University of Texas at Austin president after his response to the protest. That's something that's worth supporting, and it's incredibly brave and correct and righteous of all those faculty standing up at great personal risk, way more personal risk than somebody like Hartzell will ever put forward for anything in their goddamn life, to say this is wrong. Very happy and inspired to see that. And if people have any more questions, I would get them in now, because we got one more guy to get to. And that is somebody, if you're here, you've probably been getting some ads. If you're out of state, you'll be getting plenty because they're going to be asking for a lot of money. And that is the Democratic Party candidate for the Texas Senate seat, taking on none other than the universally loathed Ted Cruz. Colin Allred is a pretty interesting character. We talked about him a little bit on this program. Doesn't seem to get a lot of buzz, I will say. Not really an electric personality, let's be fair. Very much a kind of walk the line, don't poke your head out too much Democrat. He signed a letter. He's a representative now, a Democratic representative in Congress. He signed a letter with the Republican Party saying that he disagrees with Joe Biden's open border policies and thinks that we need to crack down on the border. Did that just a couple months ago. He's going up against Ted Cruz, Yeah. I'm a guy who really fucking wants to see more brutality at the border. I want to see more mothers' stomachs ripped open by barbed wire. Man. But yeah, I'll take the half-ass shit from a Democrat on that kind of thing. It's just so psychotic to sit here and do this kind of bullshit where these guys run and they say, oh, the democracy's under threat. Oh, our humanity's under threat by the Republican Party. And then spend a lot of their time basically saying, hey, I pretty much agree with the Republican Party, but I'm just going to be a little bit timid about this or that. Well, nobody wants that shit. Anyone with a heart who doesn't want to see the Rio Grande turn red with blood doesn't want to support you. And you think the psychopaths who love the show and want to see more horror there are like, oh, I like this guy. No, they want the crazier guy. Absolutely. We got another example of that today because, we had a lot of statements. Lloyd Doggett, local officials here in Austin. Greg Casar showed up, our congressman here, showed up at UT today decrying what we saw. And I was wondering, where's Colin Allred? I mean, this is an easy one, right? This is you get to come at the Republicans for their hypocrisy on free speech. The way that they're using our public resources by sending DPS to crack skulls of college students. Man, it's an easy one. You don't even have to be, super tough on it. You don't even have to stand for, humanity and against genocide, right? Give you a break. But let's see what you say. Very slow. I tweeted it out this morning. Hey, when's Colin Allred going to say something? And about an hour after I tweeted that, he came out with a statement here. I'll read to y'all. So remember, this guy's going to be asking you for a lot of money. Ooh, is this going to be hard for y'all to read? Let's see. Probably is. Sorry, I'll read it aloud. Apologies. I should have just taken a screenshot of it. But this guy's going to be asking you for a lot of money. He's going to be talking about Ted Cruz and threats to democracy and all this kind of stuff. Less than 24 hours after we saw police body slam a reporter to the ground, indiscriminately arrest them. Who cares? They're a member of the press. Get them out of here. Get them out of here. Attack students who are at their university protesting against the genocide. 24 hours after that. And after all these reports coming out that Greg Abbott is basically behind this escalation. Colin already comes out and says, our campuses should be places where all students feel safe. Okay. I wonder which ones he's talking about. Oh, Jewish students must be able to attend classes free from any sense of intimidation. So already here, we're operating under the false idea and introducing the false concept that the protests yesterday had anything to do with Jewish people, instead of very much being about Israel and the United States' role in supporting Israel's mass slaughter of Palestinians. Already here, we're operating on a false premise that maybe what happened yesterday was good, right? And next we say, and students who seek to protest peacefully must be allowed to do so. Great, period, right? Oh, no. We got to add a bunch of bullshit at the end of it. Students should be able to protest peacefully, consistent with campus policies. Oh, okay. So now, did something bad happen yesterday? I don't know. And he goes on to say, overly aggressive responses to peaceful protests serve neither of those interests. We can and must both protect students' rights and their right to safety. I wonder what happened yesterday. I would have no idea after reading that statement. And also, wait, so if they do break the policies, because that's what the University of Texas is saying, the University of Texas is saying, hey, we sent out an email once the students were on the lawn that no free speech zone, you're criminal trespassing if you're out here at this time in the afternoon, right? Not typical, but we just decided that, right? Well, that's the policy of the university. That's what they're arguing. All these people broke the policies of the university that we're just sort of ad hoc creating so that the police can come and brutalize protesters. Okay. So you're basically not saying anything, are you? It's pretty nice. It's a good politician. He'll be asking you for money, and he's going to be talking about democracy, and he's going to be talking about the threat of the far right, and he's going to be talking about Donald Trump, and might even have a video in one, some B-roll in one of his videos of maybe some marching police or something ominous about maybe the march of fascism. We got to send him $15. But when you see those students getting attacked, when you see journalists getting attacked, when you're seeing the governor of the state of Texas basically turning the DPS into his own personal strike force that he can attack students that he doesn't like, I'm not really going to be able to say much that's coherent. I'm going to say two different things at once. Everybody will like that, won't they? Remember that. Fucking remember that. Because we're going to get a lot of talk from these folks about democracy, about the sanctity of the Constitution, about the importance of free speech. And remember where these people stand at moments like that are really clear. Because that's the kind of person, and those are the kind of decisions that they're going to make if they are ever tasked with a vote on something. Oh, you know what? Maybe these protesters are getting a little too crazy. Yeah, we believe in the First Amendment, but we don't think that it should apply everywhere. Maybe not in public where other people could hear your ideas. We believe in the First Amendment, but it's a private right. You can say whatever you want in your house, but if you come outside and you say something, the police might crack your skull, right? Right? No, we believe in the First Amendment as long as it's consistent with the policies and the rules that we put forward to limit it. Okay. All right. So we believe in the First Amendment, but with a big ass fucking asterisk on it. All right. Gotta defend democracy. I accept. Let's reduce the First Amendment. Let's pull it back. It needs to align with the policies of the university. It needs to align with the policies of the GOP. It needs to align with the policies of the political class in this country. Got it. All right. Looking forward to 2024. It's going to be a very fun election season for all of us, isn't it, friends? All right. I would like to stay, but we got a little bit more show that we got to prepare for y'all. We're going to be talking with Danny Bessner pretty soon about the problem of Hollywood. Really looking forward to that. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with us. You can support the show, get access to the bonus episode, get access to post-game at patreon.com/leftreckoning. Really appreciate all of y'all. Solidarity to everyone who's been out there in the streets standing up against genocide. It means more than you might even know. Take care of each other. Look out. See y'all.